Oh my goodness. This has to be probably one of the craziest days when it comes to the Nintendo Switch 2, because we have so much news to talk about. We have rumors about a giant third-party game coming to the system. We have games being announced left and right for the Nintendo Switch 2. We have new physical games on the way, and when I say physical, actual physical games fully onto the cart. We have shadow drop releases of major third-party games also dropping today for the Nintendo Switch 2. How much more are we going to talk about? Oh my gosh, this is going to be one of the biggest news videos that I have done for this system. I guess let's just get right into it. All right, let's start off with one of the bigger topics for today, and that's the fact that Tomb Raider Definitive Edition just dropped out of nowhere for both the Nintendo Switch 1 and the Nintendo Switch 2. This really came out of nowhere, considering that we just got the releases of Tomb Raider 4 through 6. I think a lot of us thought that we weren't going to get any more Tomb Raider stuff for this year when it comes to re-releasing some of the games. And this time they re-released the 2013 one. And it's coming from the same team that worked on the 1 through 6 games being brought over to modern consoles. We had no leaks, no rumors about this being a project in the works, so this really surprised a lot of people. And you can actually buy it right now for 20 bucks. And if you bought the Tomb Raider 1 through 3 digitally, you'll get an extra 10% off. And if you own the other Tomb Raider 4 through 6 game, you'll get an additional 10% off the other 10%. I don't know if this counts towards the physical releases. Most of the time when they do discounts like this, the physical stuff does not count, but the $20 is still a very good price for what this game is, especially considering that it's already on sale right now because of it being a shadow drop release. Now, something that I think is important to highlight is that this also came out for the Switch 1, and there's been people talking about the visuals of this on the Nintendo Switch 2. And it looks like the Switch 2 edition of this Tomb Raider game is actually a port of the Switch 1 version of the game. So you're not going to see much of a visual difference. However, with the Switch 2 edition, there are gyro controls, mouse controls, and 60 frames per second. That being said though, people are comparing the visuals of this game to some of the other platforms out there, like the PlayStation 4 for example. Which, from my understanding, the PlayStation 4 version of this Tomb Raider game has like an exclusive graphics mode, and I think the actual true definitive way of playing the game is the PS4 version. I don't think they could have ported the PS4 version to the Switch 2, for example. Not to mention, the visuals are already not going to be the greatest if they're porting straight from the Switch 1 rather than a brand new version of the game made for the Switch 2 in mind. So if you're looking for the best visuals, the Switch 2 version might be one to stay away from, as there's been people talking about it online about how it just doesn't look that great. And especially depending what part you are in within the Tomb Raider game, it can kind of look rough. I'm sure there's going to be questions about a physical copy of this game. As of right now, there is nothing to be announced, but I'm sure that this company is going to release a physical of this game at some point. I think a lot of people are going to be wondering, will it be a game keycard release onto Nintendo Switch 2? I'm actually going to say, considering the history of this company that's done the Tomb Raider games, I don't think we will see this be a game keycard release. I think there's a possibility that they'll team up with Limited Run. I know Limited Run has helped them with their Star Wars releases before it being released physically. And when it comes to the Tomb Raider stuff, I know they've released it on their own, but I think they'll have to team up with someone like Limited Run with the issues of a 64GB cartridge. At this moment, there's nothing to be announced, but I'm sure in a few months we will hear about a physical release of this game. I've also seen people ask about what does this mean for future Tomb Raider games since we got the first one out of this new trilogy. I'm sure that these other games will probably come to the Switch at some point. I just don't know when, because those are going to be bigger games, more development time put into that rather than something like Tomb Raider 1 through 6. That probably didn't take as much money or time compared to bringing this 2013 Tomb Raider. But I'm sure we're going to get all of it on the Switch at some point. They're just going to probably be sprinkling them out for the next year or two, if I was to guess. We have a Resident Evil 9 Requiem update when it comes to the Nintendo Switch 2 edition of the game. They have confirmed that there will not be a demo released regarding the Switch 2 version. I know a lot of people had wondered if Capcom was going to be dropping a demo for this game, because it was something that they did with Resident Evil 7 and 8, dropping demos for when it was coming out on PlayStation, for example. But they have confirmed that there will be no demo for this game coming out. They also confirmed with the Nintendo Switch 2 version that there will be no mouse controls. They highlighted the fact that they did attempt to do mouse controls on the Switch 2 version of the game, but they felt that it was just too difficult to use the mouse controls for this game. Me personally, I would have loved to have seen mouse controls utilized. You guys know me, I love when the Switch 2 utilizes the mouse, because I think the mouse is one of the coolest things of the Nintendo Switch 2. So I am for any game we can get that will use the mouse controls. I would like to say that I am happy that Capcom at least tried, and it just didn't work out well, which is totally understandable. There's going to be games out there that it probably won't work that well, and it's probably best to just use your typical controller, for example, for that when you're playing onto the Switch 2. I'm still looking forward to this release though. I think that this could be probably one of the best third-party games on the Nintendo Switch 2, and the fact that we're getting it day one with all the other platforms is kind of crazy. We have the confirmation that Bandit Trap is getting a physical release. It'll be dropping on both the Switch 1 and the Switch 2. And this is obviously coming from PM Studios. All of this company has released for the Nintendo Switch 2 has been true physical copies. So if you were wondering how the physical was going to work for this, it will not be a game keycard. I've also seen people wonder, how is this physical release going to work, because this is a game that focuses heavy on online. They have confirmed with the physical releases that they are adding offline play within this game. So if you were worried about not being able to play it without Wi-Fi, you don't have to worry anymore, because with the physical release, this update will have a offline capability to it. Let's talk about one of our bigger things to talk about now. This is a rumor. I want to highlight that there's nothing confirmed regarding this game coming to the Nintendo Switch 2. But that game is none other than Grand Theft Auto 6. Now, this is a game that I think a lot of people really want to come to the Switch 2. But when that conversation is had, a lot of people tend to laugh, because they just don't think it is possible for GTA 6 to come to the Switch 2. And if you have been following the news of GTA 6, there was another delay that happened. And funny enough, a lot of the Nintendo fans thought that this delay happened because they were putting it on the Switch 2, which, guys, I'm sorry, that is definitely not the case here. However, with that being said, we have had one of the more credible leakers out there, known as Nate the Hate, talk about GTA 6 and the likelihood of it coming to the Nintendo Switch 2. Now, Nate the Hate has highlighted that he is not saying that GTA 6 is coming to the Switch 2. But he has talked about that he has heard that Rockstar is experimenting onto the Nintendo Switch 2 if GTA 6 can come to the system. But Nate the Hate highlighted the fact that just since they are experimenting on this, does not mean that GTA 6 is going to come to the platform. He said that a lot of publishers and developers out there test their games on hardware to see if it's even possible. So this could be something that still never ends up happening for the Switch 2. If you want my take on it, I think the likelihood of GTA 6 coming to the Nintendo Switch 2 all depends on if the Xbox Series S version still comes out. As of right now, GTA 6 has been confirmed for the Series S. However, we have seen so many developers talk about how the Xbox Series S is extremely hard to develop for, because it's not as powerful as the PS5 or the Series X, for example. And we've even seen developers wish that they didn't have to optimize their game for the Series S, that they hate that console's existence. And obviously, GTA 6 is going to be a very big AAA game. It's going to be needing the best hardware possible, that being the PlayStation 5, Series X, gaming desktop, all that good stuff. I bring all of this up because I feel like there is a possibility that if this game is hard to optimize, that they might just flat out cancel the Series S version of GTA 6. And if that happens, I definitely do not think we will see a Switch 2 version of the game. But if a Series S version still happens and they were able to get it running, I do think Rockstar will look down the road and be like, hey, we pulled this off, let's see if we can do a Switch 2 version. I don't think we're going to get a Switch 2 version day one with all the other platforms. If this is something that happens, I think this could take maybe a year or two later after GTA 6 releases on all the other platforms. So I don't think the dream is dead for those wanting it, but I also don't think the dream is there all the way there, if that makes sense. We still haven't even seen true support from Rockstar when it comes to the Nintendo Switch 2. We do know that Red Dead Redemption 1 is getting a Switch 2 edition. However, I think that's going to be a very easy thing for Rockstar to do. I think once we can see something like Red Dead Redemption 2 on the Switch 2 and see how that runs and the performance of that, I feel like that could tell us how Rockstar will look at the Switch 2 as a console, if it's something that they want to support a lot in and put a lot of money. Because if they make a GTA 6 Switch 2 edition, that's going to take a lot of resources, a lot of money, and a lot of time. I think once we see Red Dead 2 on the Switch and see how that looks and runs, I think that's going to tell us the chances of GTA 6 onto this system. We got some Final Fantasy VII Remake news when it comes to the Nintendo Switch 2, and it has now been confirmed that the game in docked mode will be 1440p, and within handheld mode it will be 1080p. Now, I think this is exciting news because we've seen a lot of people talk about how Final Fantasy VII is running absolutely amazing onto the Switch 2. We also do know that this was the game that Nintendo was showing to third parties when the Switch 2 was in development. I don't know how many of you guys followed the leaks, but there was 2 games that was said to be shown off every time Nintendo was showing the Switch 2 early to developers. And that was the fact that Breath of the Wild, the Switch 2 edition, which they were just basically showing Breath of the Wild running at 60 FPS, and they were also showing that Final Fantasy VII Remake could run onto this system. And that's what had a lot of developers have their eyes interested in developing for the system. Granted, that was a rumor, but I feel like the fact that both of these things are happening, I feel like that rumor is true. And with that being said, I'm really looking forward to playing this because it seems like Square Enix is putting a lot of time and effort into this. Considering that we're going to get the rest of the trilogy onto the Switch 2 as well, I think that this could be one of our biggest third-party games and will really tell us how the Switch 2 will be able to handle some of these games. So one thing that we still don't know for sure on is if there's different performance modes within this game. At Gamescom, they were telling people that there were different modes to have like a higher frame rate, and that had a lot of articles, and then Square Enix came out saying there's actually one set mode. So I don't know. I feel like there's still a possibility that there's going to be like a 40 frames per second mode within this, kind of like how Cyberpunk has it for the Switch 2. Nonetheless, I can't wait for January. This is going to be a giant release for the system. And for our last story, the Broken Sword developers have confirmed that the Smoking Mirror Reforged will be coming to the Nintendo Switch 2. They also got questioned if a physical copy will happen, and they said that nothing is set in stone, but they have nothing to share. But they did say if a physical copy of this game was to happen for the Nintendo Switch 2, it would not be a game key card release. They also talked about how they feel that Nintendo is a very brilliant company. I try my best to let you guys know about the situation of when games are getting a physical release or if it's going to be a game key card. So I'm going to do my best to continue informing you guys on that as information comes out. I think a lot of you guys enjoy that. If not, I guess I'll slow down on that. But I figured that for that last story, it's good to know that they're at least considering and hoping to release this game physically. Guys, I have been talking for way too much. Make sure to backslash that subscribe button, like the video, check out the Twitter, Discord, Instagram, all that good stuff in the description below. Become a Monado Marine, $5 a month. Helps out the channel tremendously, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace! Alright, time to play more Hyrule Warriors.